welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm heading back into Hammer House of Horror to discuss the series' third episode, Rude Awakening, released on September 27th, 1980. It stars Denholm Elliott, James Lawrenson, Pat Haywood, and Lucy Gutteridge. Peter Sasti returned as the episode's director after directing the previous episode, The 13th Reunion. With this brief context laid out, let's review Rude Awakening. The episode follows a time loop narrative with the idea of nesting dreams that continually replay a similar situation haunting our main character. Norman's dreams follow the same pattern. He wakes up and his wife pesters him. He then heads off to work, surveying a piece of land. During these surveys, something new and horrifying continually happens, forcing him to wake up and restart the cycle. This nightmare cycle features several small nuggets that give us insight into Norman's psychological state. For example, in each new dream, the secretary he's having an affair with has a drastically different look, which cleverly showcases his desires. Norman also continues to hear from a mysterious man whose haunting voice repeatedly tells him he shouldn't have killed his wife. As this loop continues, he begins to unravel, increasingly elaborate situations presenting themselves. This pure psychological horror allows the show's budgetary restraints to be more effectively hidden. We get some interesting camera movement from Sasti, who does a good job of increasing the tension through the filmmaking. This off-kilter cinematography is the kind of craftsmanship missing from the painfully generic second episode. We feel the psychological descent of our character. While the ending is predictable and features a stupid twist, the build-up is well done. This is the kind of slower build that Sasti attempted with the 13th Reunion, but was executed much better here. We start with a fun jump scare with the dumbwaiter, and then the patterns that emerge in the dream loop help us to learn more about our character. This builds until we get a well-executed set piece in the apartment building. The demolition of the building is well done and feels like the crescendo of the horror that was built up. Like I said, the ending is rather predictable and adds a stupid final twist that undermines the whole psychological nature of the tale. This makes it feel much cheaper and tackier than it had been before. However, the rest of the episode holds up fine due to the good performances from the cast. Denholm Elliott does a good job showcasing the psychology of his character. He showcases his character's desires subtly and realistically depicts his psychological descent. He sells the character as a sleazy fool, while still maintaining some sympathy for our cursed main character. This allows for the dream loop narrative to be effectively executed, complementing the writing and directing of the episode, which is much improved from the second episode. Lucy Gutteridge gives a fun performance as Lolly. Her acting sells the subtle and clever horror of this episode through her ability to shift into a new character archetype at will, keeping the nightmare loop feeling fresh. This is then juxtaposed with a devilishly executed reality scene at the end, where her true talent is revealed. Her ability to sell the horror of her situation snaps us out of the nightmare world and into the sad reality of Norman's hellish situation. The rest of the cast does a decent job, which along with much better executed direction, helps this episode stand out. Through 3 episodes, the show has been inconsistent, but also a nice slice of comfort horror. If I had watched the show as a kid in the 80s, I probably would have been scared to death. However, in retrospect, the show's old-school horror anthology approach is comforting and a perfect watch during October. I'm starting to get into these old horror anthology shows, and while they do tend to suffer from low budgets, they also have some interesting approaches to horror that you won't see in a full-length feature film. It's not that these are original ideas, but rather that the time constraints of a single episode lend them to feature simple, familiar premises executed in unique ways to fit the format. This can serve as a solid foundation for any good horror tale. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next week.